So today I want to take a look at carbohydrates and a couple of things. I want us to kind of get down to some of the basics. I want us to be able to identify a functional group, and the only ones I want to be able to identify is going to be either an aldehyde or a ketone. Aldehyde has this. So we do an aldehyde. They all contain a carbonyl group. So this is a carbonyl. But it has a hydrogen attached to that. So it has a hydrogen attached on one end, and then there's another one could be an R. So that's an aldehyde. A ketone is not going to have a hydrogen. It still has a carbonyl. But it has two R groups attached to that. Again, the R groups can be some type of carbon compound to that. So this is going to be an ketone. And this right here is going to be an aldehyde. So let's take a look at some of this. This one right here. So again, I'm going to draw these, the skeletal figure. So this is going to be our carbon. So this is like carbon number 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice that carbon number 2 has a carbonyl. It's attached to carbon number 1 and carbon number 3. So that's going to be a ketone. So you don't see that carbonyl carbon attached to directly to a hydrogen, basically. This one right here, same thing. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Carbon number 1 is attached to carbon number 5 and a carbon number 2, not directly to a hydrogen, and so this is a ketone. And then for number 3 now, again, this is carbon number 1, 2. Carbon number 1 is attached directly to a hydrogen and then to another carbon, so that's an aldehyde. Something like glucose is an aldehyde. So that's the blood sugar, and fructose. This is an aldehyde. The ketone. So if you have regular table sugar, sucrose, it's glucose plus fructose. So now we're going to look at some sugars, and we're going to identify it as a ketose or aldose. So aldose means it's an aldehyde. Ketose is a ketone, and then we're going to identify the isomer, L or D. So this happens in nature. So for instance, now let's take a look at this one. Now the way to quickly identify it is I look at this part right here. So let's look at both of these right here. So let's make this A and B. So these right here are aldehydes because you have that carbon double bond O directly to a hydrogen. So these are going to be aldoses. So I can identify both of these as aldose. A couple of things. Let's look at how many carbons I have in this chain. So it's carbon number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, each vertex is a carbon, so there's 5 of those. So this is actually going to be a aldopentose. So 5 means it has a 5 carbons in the chain. Same thing with this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I like to label each one. So this is another aldopentose. Again, these are very generic names for these. And then I got to the side, L or D isomer. To find the L or D isomer, we look at this last carbon right here. The last vertex right here. We look at these right here. We don't look at number 5, we look at number 4. If the OH is on the left, it's an L. OH on the right, it's going to be a D. So in this case, both cases, the OH is on the right-hand side. So this is going to be a D aldopentose, and this is another D aldopentose. The only difference between these two compounds is that if you look at carbon number 2, I have an OH on attached to that carbon, and this one I don't. The common name for this is actually ribose. That's a common name. This is a sugar in RNA. This one right here, so I don't have an OH here, like in carbon number 2. This is called deoxyribose. So deoxy means I've lost an oxygen. This is actually the sugar in DNA. So we'll take a look at that towards the end of the semester. The type of sugars in RNA and DNA. So let's continue. Let's look at C. So C now, again, identified as a aldose or ketose. This right here, so look at carbon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I got 6 carbons in a row. Well, if I look at carbon number 2, that's going to be a ketone. So if it's a ketone in there, it's bonded to carbon number 1 and carbon number 3. That's going to be a ketose. There's 6 of these, so this is going to be ketohexose. And then I got to decide, is that going to be D or L? Well, if I look at this, the OH is on the right-hand side, so it's going to be a D ketohexose. If it's on the left, then it's L. That's why I remember. L means left. Let's take a look at this one here. This is actually fructose, by the way. So, fructose is part of sucrose. That's actually a ketose. It's actually a ketone on there. Let's look at this one right here. So again, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is going to be a tetrose. It has 4 of these. I'll look at this. This is an aldo. So aldose. So it's an aldo tetrose. So tet means 4. Same thing with this. Hex means 6. And then this right here is actually on the left. So look at this right here. It's on an L, so it's an L aldo tetrose.